Have you ever gone back and played a game you absolutely loved as a kid and something just felt wrong? It's the same game, the same music, the same characters and level you probably thought about for years, but somehow it feels smaller. The controls are worse than you remember, the world isn't as impressive. You play for maybe 20 minutes, waiting for that feeling to come back, that nostalgic feeling, and it just doesn't. You remember this being one of the greatest games ever made. This happened to me so many times. So why aren't you feeling anything now? I think it's because you don't entirely miss old games. You miss who you were when you played those games. Honestly, you know what? I've probably played thousands of games throughout my life. There are a dozen of them that generally helped shaped who I am today, who I became. And that might sound ridiculous to someone who doesn't play games at all or people that rip on games, but I know other gamers understand exactly what I mean. Games influence the kind of art I love, the music I listen to, the stories I wanted to tell, the people I hung out with. They affected my sense of humor, my imagination, and all of my friendships. Every single one of them, actually, now that I think of it. And certain games just didn't entertain me. They became attached to this entire period of my life, this nostalgic era. Whenever one of those games come up in conversation, I immediately remember it as one of the greatest things I've ever played, one of the greatest experiences I ever had. In my head, it looks incredible. It feels incredible. I remember every weapon, every level, every secret level to be exact, and every ridiculous long night I spent playing them. But occasionally, I'll actually return to one of those games. Sometimes I'll install an emulator. I find an old console that I have. Sometimes I'll even buy another console. I'll build the experience up in my mind with all the genuine, nostalgic excitement, and then I start playing again. And I'm not gonna lie, sometimes the game still completely delivers. There are games that do. Some old games absolutely still slap, but other times, I just feel underwhelmed. I noticed empty environments, some of the controls are frustrating to be honest, terrible camera, the same mission I remembered as this enormous adventure that I loved. I just finished it in 15 minutes and I'm like, is that it? That emotional hit I expect never arrives anymore. It almost feels like the games have changed, but they have not changed. You know what's changed? I've changed. Remember this, memory doesn't preserve a game exactly the way it was. It preserves how the game made you feel. Your brain is mysterious. Your brain has been quietly remastering that game for over 20 years, 30 years, maybe even 40 years for some of you. It removes the bad frame rates, the short draw distance, the nights fighting with scratched discs and broken cores. We've all been there, overheated power supplies. Where it remains is the excitement. The room you played it in, the friends sitting behind you, the smell of pizza. I can smell the pizza now. The glow of the television after everyone else has gone to sleep. We've all been there. The smell of your friend's farts. Maybe not that part, but sometimes, depends on what friend it was or what you're eating, right? The version of the game inside your memory is running at a resolution no emulator could ever reproduce. And when you finally return to the real version, sometimes it just can't compete. Sometimes the real version of those games absolutely suck ass. We love to joke about blowing into cartridges, running out of space on memory cards, trying to get, one more session out of an old disc that's super cracked. It looks like sandpaper was ran all over it. But honestly, I don't actually miss fighting with any of that shit, to be honest. I miss 11-year-old me during summer vacation. That's what I miss. I miss being able to stay up all night playing one game without feeling guilty about what I should be doing instead. Not like now. I feel guilty every time I game now. There was no job back then waiting for you in the morning, no mortgages, no taxes, no children to take care of, no emails to do, appointments, text messages. You know what I'm talking about, just busy stuff like that. Trying to take your protein shake in the morning, bro. And you know what? The best part, your friends didn't have responsibilities either. Nobody had to check with 3 different calendars to figure out if anyone might be free for 2 hours to play any game like it is now. It was simple back then. I'm an 80s baby, grew up in the 90s, early 2000s. Someone just knocked on your door, and suddenly the entire day belonged to just you. You could literally become completely immersed in whatever game you were playing. You think about the game while eating dinner, or you were late to dinner like I was. I would never show up to dinner. I would come up to dinner finally and it would be completely cold. My mom would be mad. You draw characters and maps, you fall asleep, you draw notes, you dream about the game when you fall asleep, and you wake up and you play it again first thing in the morning before you had to do anything else. And you know what? There wasn't any pressure back then to finish games quickly so you could just move on to the next game. There are too many games out right now also. You weren't looking at some massive backlog of 200 games or games you buy and you just play for 5 minutes and never play again. You weren't checking your phone every 6 minutes for text messages or social media or mixed calls, or wondering whether some other game might be more productive use of your time or which game is better. You just played what you had. And back then, because you usually owned fewer games Every game had room to become super important. The game you had was the game you played. You learned everything about it. You played the same levels repeatedly. You experimented with stupid ideas because there was no tutorial videos, nothing to show you the correct answer or what to do. I guess you could call Nintendo Hotline. Does anybody remember that? The internet existed, right? But it was still in its infancy phases. That wasn't a huge thing. One of my favorite things to do was getting cheat codes in the back of game magazines. GamePro was my life back then, it really was. Or sometimes you'd get those discs in the magazines you could play with a bunch of demos. That was amazing. Or you'd hear secrets from someone's older brother. Every school had some kid that claimed there was some hidden character or level that nobody else ever seemed to see. Most of those rumors were complete bullshit, but we didn't know that. And that's what made it special. Not knowing made these games feel enormous. The mystery didn't end at the edge of the screen. Our imaginations continued building the world after we turned the consoles off. At least mine did, especially if you were drunk in high school and you could still see the game in your ceiling. But more than anything, you know what I really miss, honestly? I miss the people. One of my favorite childhood memories was a backyard sleepover at my friend's house. I believe it was his birthday party during the summer. We had 2 giant tents, 6 kids, 2 CRT televisions, and 2 Nintendo 64s with pizza. I mean, it was absolutely amazing. It must have looked like we were establishing some kind of extremely primitive gaming compound to the neighbors. We dragged everything to the backyard. We played NFL Blitz and GoldenEye absolutely all night, just swapping between both of them because we only have 1 copy of each. We told jokes. We ate pizza, we yelled at each other over the games, and at some point, I remember there was a huge fight that broke out, and neighbors had to come send us all home. It was absolutely amazing. GoldenEye was my favorite game at that time, and for years since, every time I think about GoldenEye, it's just that feeling that I want back. GoldenEye wasn't just a game anymore, it was tangled together with those tents, the televisions, my friends, and the summer night air. Can you smell it? It was the glow of the TVs lighting up the inside of the tents. I remember it was tons of mosquitoes and musky. It was looking outside, seeing the clear 90s starry sky. The sun was even different back then. It was yellow and warm, not bright and white. It was knowing we had the entire night ahead of us to do exactly what we wanted to do, and we could be anywhere we wanted to be in those games. And you know what? I didn't fully understand any of this until recently. It wasn't GoldenEye that I missed. Not entirely. I missed it a little bit. I missed myself. I missed who my friends were at that age. I missed how effortless it was for all of us just to be in the same place. I missed a time when one night could feel like an entire lifetime. That's what I missed. And you know what? The games were just the cherry on top of the cake. And that's why recreating the setup doesn't always recreate the feeling. I've been playing tons of nostalgic old games again, and it just doesn't feel the same. You can connect the same old original consoles, buy the CRT TVs off eBay for $300, order the same pizza that you've loved for years, turn off all the lights, and play the exact same game, but you cannot completely recreate that person who originally sat in front of that television. And what's sad is that version of you didn't know how quickly the years would just move on and pass everything by. I didn't know that those ordinary nights back then would eventually become some of my favorite memories. And my conclusion is, I think maybe that's the part we're actually chasing whenever we turn to an old game. The game is not an amazing game. Some of them are, but that's not it. What's amazing is the nostalgia. It's not the graphics. It's not the controller. What we're doing is we're looking for a doorway back into a room that no longer exists. The thing is, I don't think that has to be depressing. Those games didn't fail just because they can't make us feel the exact same way 30 years later. I mean, they already did their job back then. They gave us those nights, those friendships, those worlds and memories. And even if we can't become those kids again, we can still learn something. We can put the phone down. We can stop worrying about finishing every game. Sometimes I get so stressed out because I have so many games, I just want to finish all of them, and I don't have the time because I work so much. Choose one game instead of staring at your library for dozens of hours. How many of you went home and just, it can be with video games or movies, and you just scan. You just browse movies for 3 hours, browse games for 3 hours, browse your library for 3 hours, and you never end up actually watching or playing anything. Call an old friend, order a pizza, allow ourselves to waste the entire night without trying to turn it into content, progress, or productivity. That's what I do this constantly. And you know what? We may never create that exact feeling, but what you can do is we can still make new memories that our future selves will eventually look back upon. You know, in another 20 years, I want to look back upon this era and feel nostalgic about that. Maybe 20 years from now, the games you're playing tonight will not matter nearly as much as the person who was sitting beside you or the person you were willing to play it with. So here's what I want you to do. Think about the old games you missed the most. Now try to remember everything that surrounded it. What room were you in? What did the television look like? Who was sitting beside you? What did the musky carpet and couch smell like? Were you being baked out by cigarette smoke? What did your life feel like back then? I truly think that you don't miss the game. I think you just miss who you were. And maybe that's exactly why the game mattered so much. I want you to comment down below. Tell me what game immediately takes you back. And what do you think you're really remembering? Thank you for joining FrameBreaker. This was the After Hours.